Hello and good morning this morning, and welcome to Idea TV newspaper review for this morning. My name is Mary Ojimajo, and today we're going to be taking you through the newspaper headlines for today. Having exciting stories I want to read out for you today. And once again, we're still in the spirit of the season. Yes, we're still in the spirit of the season. Okay, for the first newspaper that we have for this morning, we have some exciting stories on the Vanguard newspaper for the morning. And one of the stories we have on the Vanguard newspaper for the morning is Senate kicks against multiple budgets in one fiscal year. And that is from page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper for this morning. And we also have U.S. exhibition, Christmas comes early. Wow, Christmas comes early for some people. Okay, that is from on page 10 of the Vanguard newspaper for this morning. Do you think that Christmas actually came early? If Christmas has come early for you, we would love to know. And that is you following us on all across our social media platforms at Idea Television. We want to hear from you. We want to read your comments and your thoughts. Alright, let's move to the next newspaper for the morning. We have on page 28, we have interagency rivalry to blame for bandit allegation. And that reading is at page 28 of the Vanguard newspaper for this morning. And we also have on page 9, we have terrorism sponsor ex-governor Bafawara Carpets Bello Tunji, terrorism sponsor. And that's on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper for the morning. And the big story that we have here on the Vanguard is year-end festivities push inflation to 4 months high. Year-end festivities push inflation to 4 months high. Wow. And that you see on the page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper for the morning. We have other relating story on the Vanguard newspaper that we'll take this morning, and we have reps widening into Dangote's NMDPRA dispute summons party. And that is on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. We also have emergency rule. President can suspend elected officials. Emergency rule. President can suspend elected officials, and that you will see on page 9. This is from the Supreme Court, and that you see on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper for the morning. Okay, right about now, let's take you through the next newspaper we have for this morning. That is on the Nation's newspaper. Let's see stories that we have on the Nation's newspaper for today. And one of the stories we have on the Nation's newspaper, one of the big stories we have on the Nation's newspaper is Buhari did not name sponsor to life. Buhari did not name successor to save life. Keep APC intact. And that's on the Nation's newspaper. Buhari did not name successor to save life. Keep APC intact. That is one of the big stories we have. And we have Supreme Court. President has power on emergency order. That is another story there. That's on page 2 of the Nation's newspaper. And we also have viral bandit footage results of inter-agency tension, and that you read on page 3 of the Nation's newspaper. And also we have on page 4, we have police to rescue enforcement of tinted glass permits on January 2nd. So police to resume enforcement of tinted glass permits January 2nd. So if you know that you have a tinted glass, you have to have a tinted glass permit also. And that story we read on page 4 of the Nation's newspaper for the morning. And we also have BUA's 30 billion naira cash award for long-standing staff members. That's on page 7. That's an exciting one there. That's on page 7 of the Nation's newspaper. We also have a 2026 federal government targets aggressive revenue drive to curtail 52 trillion naira debt. That's on page 7 of the Nation's newspaper for the morning. Let's move forward to the next newspaper we have for this morning, and that is on the New Telegram newspaper. Let's see what we have on the New Telegram newspaper for the morning. We have Tinubu, we are not mobilizing all military assets to protect Nigerians, crush security threats. And that story we read on page 2 of the New Telegram newspaper, mobilizing all military assets to protect Nigerians. And you read that story on page 2 and 3 of the New Telegram newspaper for the morning. I also have another story here. We have Supreme Court upholds president power to declare emergency rule, suspends elected officials. That's an interesting one you want to go through, and that story is here on page 44 of the New Telegram newspaper. Now let's read other relating stories that we have here. We also have on the New Telegram newspaper, we have police to resume tinted glass permit enforcement from January 2nd. And that is to tell you that if you do have a tinted glass, you should also have tinted glass permit for it, because on January 2nd it's going to be hot. Alright, let's move to the next story. That story is here on page 5 of the New Telegram newspaper. Is making headlines. We saw it on our Nation newspaper, also on this Telegram newspaper. It's making headlines. So let's take the next story we have here on page 5 and 2 of the Telegram newspaper. We have corruption allegations. Rep summons Dangote. Corruption allegation. Rep summons Dangote NDPRA CEO. Then you read that story on page 2 and 5 of the Telegram newspaper. And we have another relating story here. Nigeria's inflation rate drops from 8 Nigeria inflation rate, drops from 8 consecutive months now to 14%. That is, you're going to see that story on page 3 of the New Telegram newspaper. On page 9 of the New Telegram newspaper, we have PDP crisis. My group and I will align with another party if reconciliation fails. That is coming from Sule Lamido, and that is on page 6 of the New Telegram newspaper for the morning. And we hope you go through these newspapers because they are actually exciting stories. And we also have the NIS smugglers now use encrypted messaging apps. Wow. Collaborated with criminal gaps. That's another exciting story. Not really exciting though, but that story you read on page 5 of the New Telegram newspaper for this morning. We also have Malini to EFCC chairman, rescue yourself, you can't investigate me. And that you read that story on page 3 and page 27 of the Nation's news of the New Telegram newspaper for the morning. We have budget 2026 Senate frowns on multiple plans on clear implementation records, and that story you see on page 2 of the New Telegram newspaper for the morning. And then on the newspaper on page 29, we have another exciting story you will love to read about, and that is abdomen obesity, muscles loss increase risks of death study, and that you would want to study on page 29 of the New Telegram newspaper for the morning. So police will resume tinted glass permit enforcement from January 2nd. We're sounding this so that you get your tinted permit early. If you have a car that do have a tinted glass, it's time for you to get a tinted permit in order to save yourself from the embarrassment if caught. So it's going to take place on January 2nd, and it's going to be a very tough one from January 2nd. And this news is making headlines because they want us, the citizens, to take note of it. Now, right about now, before we take you to the rest of the stories that we have for the morning, we'd like to go on a quick break. And when we return, we're sure to give you the rest of the news as it comes.
Number 1. Synthetic biology advances. Synthetic biology is pushing science into new territory. Using AI-guided gene editing, researchers are engineering organisms to produce biofuels, biodegradable plastics, and even synthetic meat. In 2023, Ginkgo Bioworks announced partnerships to design microbes that can manufacture sustainable chemicals from the materials we use to the way we connect and even how we think. And if you missed part 1, make sure to check it out next. If you made it this far, let us know what you think in the comment section below. For more interesting topics, make sure you watch the recommended video that you see on the screen right now.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us through the little break that we have. Okay, right about now we're going to take you to the next story that we have, the next newspaper headlines that we have for you for the morning. And that's on the Guardian newspaper for the morning. Let's see the stories we have on the Guardian newspaper for this morning. One of the story headlines we have there is Supreme Court verdict on emergency rule on settled power structure, and that is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper for the morning. I also have other relating exciting story that you love to read. We have one of the relating story we have on page 15 of the Guardian newspaper. We have inflation outperforms Tinubu's target to 14.45%, and that you will see on page 15 of the Guardian newspaper for the morning. We have Tinubu louts Buhari's legacy, virtues at biography launch, and that you will read that story on page 5 of the Guardian newspaper for the morning. And we also have Senate flags multiple budget, rises FRS 2026 target to 35 trillion naira, and that you will see that story on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper for the morning. Wow, and we'll also have an exciting story that you will love to read. Harvest the future with Ellen Lake PLC offer for subscription, and that is another story you want to read on the Guardian newspaper. All right, let's move to the next newspaper we have on Daily Sun, and one of the story we have there on page 4 is Tinubu charges army to remain apolitical. That's another one there, and that story you will read on page 4 of the Daily Sun. And we have other stories. We have PDP lawyers fought Supreme Court. That's a big one, and it's going to be a long story there. That is on page 6 of the Daily Sun newspaper for the morning. Okay, let's look at the relating stories we have here. For the morning, we have FRS to rise 2026 revenue target to 35 trillion naira as Senate funds as multiple budget rollover. I'll take that again. FRS to rise 2026 revenue target to 35 trillion naira as Senate funds at multiple budget rollovers. And that story you'll see on page 8 of the Daily Sun newspaper for the morning. Now we also have another story. We must defeat enemies of Nigeria. Defense Minister charges soldiers, and that you will read on page 26 of the Daily Sun newspaper for the morning. And we also have PDP. I will come out of current challenges better, stronger. That is another saying by one of our ministers, and that story we see on page 26 of the Daily Sun newspaper. We have CGN once against conflicting decision on political matters. CGN once again conflicting decisions on political matters, and that you will see the story on page 27 of the Daily Sun newspaper, and other relating stories too, and exciting stories that you will love to go through. I also have other story. Dangote Mafia worse than drug cartel behind over 100 attacks on PHC refinery. Oil mafia worse than drug cartel behind over 100 attacks on PHC refinery. That's another story you want to read on page 2 of the Daily Sun newspaper for the morning. Before let's take you right to the next newspaper we have for the morning, and that is on the Tribune newspaper for the morning. Let's see the stories we have on the Tribune newspaper for the morning. We have Nigeria's inflation drops to 14.45%, and that story you will see on page 6 of the Tribune newspaper is an exciting story that you want to read through and know what exactly is happening. And we have police to resume tinted glass permit enforcement in January 2nd. Now this is another tinted glass permit. We're having the news again. It's a very serious one, so get your tinted permit early. I also have why Buhari has no favored successor. DGDSS. That's on page 2 that you will love to read. It's another interesting story that you love to go through on the Tribune newspaper for the morning. Concerns we have on our big story, we have concerns among businessmen over new tax regime. That is another one story that is very interesting that you want to go through. Concerns among businesses over new tax regime. You want to know about the new tax regime that will take effect on January 1st, 2026. You want to know about it. So that story you see on page 5 and page 6 of the Tribune newspaper for the morning. We have other related stories that you would love to read with us for the morning. We have Buhari's legacies ensures. Buhari legacies ensures, and that you have the story on page 3 of the Tribune newspaper. We have on page 27, we have several worshippers fear adopted by bandits in Kogi Church. And that is another story you see on page 27 of the Tribune newspaper. And we also have too much coffee may weaken bone in older women. Too much coffee may weaken bone in older women. It's another study you want to go through on page 12. You read about it because a lot of us have grandmas and grandpas at home. So you know that too much coffee would weaken their bones. They do not need too much of coffee. That's another study you want to go through on page 12 of the Tribune newspaper for the morning. And we have 2026 budget. Senators demand more answers. That's an interesting one you want to go through, and that is on page 25 of the Tribune newspaper for this morning. And another story, an interesting story we have here, we have Supreme Court affirms President's power to declare emergency rule. We've seen this story in our previous newspapers that we had this morning, and it's another one. It means it's an interesting story that you want to go through. Supreme Court affirms President's power to declare emergency rule. And on that 2026 budget, Senator demands more answer. We have federal government admits revenue challenges. That is another interesting one. On that, and we also have we got 10 trillion naira out of 40 trillion naira projected in 2025, Finance Minister says. Alright, that's another interesting one that you would want to read there. We also have other readings here. We have fight over LG, lavish on vehicles, NSE's extortion, and law prohibits cash-basis tax collection. We have harassment, extortion by local authorities outlawed under NTAA 2025. We also have insufficient communication clarity ahead of implementation being addressed. Oyedele says that. And we have Joint Revenue Board declares war on illegal roadblocks, scrap road stickers nationwide. That's another interesting story that you want to read there, and we want you to go through the newspapers and see all the exciting stories that you will find there, especially about the tinted permits that will take effect next year, 2026, particularly January 2nd. And it's an interesting one for you to go through and know the things you have to put in place before that time. I would not want you to be a victim of that, so let's do the needful. Well, we've taken you through all the newspapers we have for the morning and our exciting stories. We still urge you to follow us across all our social media platforms at Idea Television. We want you to send us your comments. We want you to send us your thoughts on what you think about it. And thanks for joining us into the newspaper review. I am Mary Ojumajo. Thanks for watching.